Yeah.
My favorite.
It's Judd's Hockey Show.
And yes, it is Judd's Hockey Show, reacting to not one but two Minnesota Wild tilts Declan Goff over the weekend. The Wild now coming back to open a 4-game homestand against the Oilers on Monday night. They do so having won 2 games on a 4-game road trip, losing to Calgary 5-3 on Wednesday. We reacted to that one. The last 2 games of the trip we have not talked about yet, though, and that is a 5-2 loss to Edmonton in Edmonton on Friday, and then an impressive Filip Gustavsson 3-0 victory on Saturday. And I want to start you here. I don't think I've ever been so confused by a Dean Evason move as I was on Friday.
You were hot.
When he decided Calen Addison should be scratched because he wasn't playing well enough defensively, but he left John Merrill and Goligoski in. But here's where I just got flat out confused. Edmonton's a fast team. Why would you I guess I sort of get the message, although Dean is very, very old school, but why would you do that against a team he's your power play guy? He's your top power play guy. Calen is, and he's got some speed, and instead you play basically 2 beer league defensemen against the Oilers.
Yeah. It's sometimes, I've used this expression with you before, mostly I think on JHS, sometimes with the Vikings too, when we're on Purple Daily, but it's the devil you know versus the devil you don't. And for whatever reason, Dino just doesn't really trust these younger, high, flashy octane players who sometimes do miscues defensively and they get into his doghouse and then he just has to scratch it. I mean, the way Merrill performed in the Wednesday game, right, that left the Flames player completely out to dry. I believe it was Merrill, wasn't it? Towards the end, after the Wild tied it up and towards the end of regulation.
It was Merrill and Goudreau. They both screwed up royally.
And so then you scratch Addison, who, again, is this young and up and coming guy who can quarterback your power play. You know what? It kind of reminds me of Matt Dumba early in his career, where Dumba wasn't making, the best of defensive plays and sometimes got caught a lot. But was such a great offensive force that it was hard to keep his game out, or how to keep his play out of the lineup. But then you scratch him, and I don't know what that really does to Calen's confidence either. The whole thing to me is just very, very bizarre, especially against an Edmonton Oilers team that, like to your point, I mean, that top line's probably the best in the entire NHL. Why would you want to sacrifice that for old, slow? That's like the old Boudreau end of the era when we were putting Stahl and Suter out for the 3-on-3 overtime. Why are we doing that? That's not going to be conducive. So yeah, it boggled my mind too. I know it made you nice and hot for the weekend on a Friday night, ready to fire up a JHS. So let's go. It's like, well, let's play it out, and we'll talk on Sunday.
Oh no, I went right to
Park Tavern,
my afternoon Judd, and cut one at Park Tavern, explaining, sometimes you need a surly early in the afternoon when they are scratching this kid.
That's right.
And look, if you had scratched him against the Canucks, I get that more because the Canucks are a bigger team, and so I think that the matchups are more conducive. But I mean, my God, the Oilers and that power play, how much fun is that power play to watch? They're passing.
Oh, yeah.
Draisaitl and McDavid. That team, look, they've got their flaws. Jack Campbell in goal certainly has not been what they expected or wanted yet, but that is a fun team. And the Wild, they've got about what, Dex? 2 guys that can move with them. Kaprizov can with the Oilers, but for the most part, like that game, it was just like, you're not going to win. And watching poor Alex Goligoski and Johnny Merrill try and, play defensively sound hockey against those guys was just really confounding and confusing.
Yeah, I didn't get it either. I mean, I'm glad they bounced back, obviously, on Saturday with a nice 3-0 win. I was impressed with that. Sammy Walker has a decent debut, which I'm sure we're about to get into as well.
Yep.
Filip Gustavsson too has been playing pretty good hockey when called upon. I don't ride him here, not by any means. He is still a backup, as you and I have said, but what they've gotten even from Gustavsson, I've thought that's exactly what you want from a backup goalie. I mean, he pitched a shutout for God's sakes, but every time he's been called upon after the first 3 games of the season when he had to play out of necessity, he's been very, very solid for them.
In fact, you know what? Since the first, I don't know, 3 or 4 games, I don't blame goaltending for the problems.
Mm-mm.
I think Fleury, I mean, he gave up what? Did he give up 4 of the 5 goals in Edmonton on Friday? And then I think they got an empty net goal.
Mhm.
Um, by the way, by skating the puck out of the zone. Oh my God, I was so excited. But the fact is, those first 3 or 4 games of the Wild season, goaltending wise, were really bad. Since then, I think it's been fine. Like I would, if I was to have a pie chart for why this team, as action began on Sunday night when we're recording this, is in the second, I believe, wild card spot, goaltending would be down my list. Like I think that there's lots of things to pick at, and I think that there's lots of performances, but for the most part, Flower since those first 2 games, and Gustavsson now that he seems to be in the role that's right for him, both to me, I think have been good.
Fleury
No
hasn't
complaints.
looked, I would say, like superb since coming back from injury by any means. He was on a nice little run there before the injury, and he's clearly someone that likes to be in a rhythm. And once he gets in the rhythm, you know what you're going to get out of him. I would like to see him play a little bit better recently, but I'm not blaming
The
him
Oilers
necessarily for the
game, I
losses.
mean,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
don't know
no,
how you stop those. Like those
no.
passes on the power play are ridiculous. Side to side, bang, bang, bang. So yeah, I don't fault him. Now, last night's game against the Canucks, who are a definite step down. Like
Hmm.
this is not it's got talent. I want to watch my words here because they're not a bunch of slappies. They've got some talent, Vancouver does, but they certainly got off to a terrible start. And I do think ultimately Bruce is going to be
Yeah.
fired at some point here. But all of that being said, so I like the bounce back coming off the back-to-back defeats to the Flames and the Oilers. I thought the bounce back was good. Um, Here's what bothered me. I felt that the performance was a little reminiscent of days gone by, though, because they almost came out too engaged. And it's like, where was this? Like they were playing last night like they had been chewed out, which, great. You played
Probably were.
a good game, and they probably were, but that's a very fine line. Like that was a problem with the previous teams that I know that this team is going to have some bad games and some slumps.
Sure.
But that being said, there was a level of engagement I saw in Vancouver that I think we need to see way more consistently for periods at a time, not just the first, not just the third. And I did think last night was a reflection of what this team is capable of doing against a lot of teams in this league when they apply themselves. And I don't want to see this come and go because that's where to me it gets really frustrating.
It's getting a little bit more clear, I think, as the season's progressed, as they've found your favorite buzzword of the Bally Sports North crew identity,
Such
as each
crap.
game passes by. But it's still getting hard to figure out how good this team is. I think that's still kind of up in the air. How good is this team?
Fair.
They're clearly not going to be as good as they were last year. That's a fact. We can agree on that.
Mhm.
They're not as good and as exciting, maybe even as last year. Um, it's still trying to figure out though how seriously can we take them? Because right now they still kind of just feel like, yeah, probably a fringe playoff team. Uh,
Mhm.
Not anyone that would scare you if they got the right first round matchup. Maybe there's some upset potential, but they're probably not going to be favored in a first round matchup by any means, unless things really go off the rails with the teams that are above them and they maybe get hot. I'm just trying to figure out what kind of team this is. Is it a team that you can really buy into and can be a grittier team and a team that can maybe surprise a team when they play them in the first round? There's still so much season left to play here, and we've never this podcast never been a podcast that gets too far ahead of ourselves with this Wild team, even when
Right.
have had good ones like last year.
Yep.
Um, I'm still just trying to figure out how good this Wild team can be. It's still just completely up in the air for me.
So I think they can be I think that they are a fringe playoff team, but the Western Conference in this conference, that's no slight. Like the
Sure.
Western Conference is filled with them. So it's not like, well, the Wild sort of sucks, but then they don't suck. The Wild is, I think, very much in the middle of a conference in which there are not a lot of great teams, but there's certainly good competition. So I think that's where it starts. Um, the identity thing, I'll go back to it, but the identity thing is very clear. When they give the performance like they did last night, they're going to win games. They're going to win games because they played their asses off. And this is where I think the most important thing is, and the people that are looking to make excuses for it, this team drive me crazy. This team, short of Kaprizov, Zuccarello, maybe, but last night he worked hard. Like he played a hell of a game, and it started with his work. But outside of a guy like Kaprizov, this team doesn't have enough players who are good enough to glide. And what I mean by that is last year, like him or not, and look, it drove Guerin and Dino crazy. But when Fiala got in a streak, which he's done here now with the Kings too, he's putting up a lot of points. But when Fiala got hot and got in a streak, he was a star. He was talented. Kaprizov's a superstar, so there is a difference. But almost no one on the Wild beyond Kaprizov is in either box. Spurgeon is definitely talented. At his best, he works his ass off. I'll give you one last night, and I about jumped through my television set and went to Vancouver and got in this guy's face. We got a Jordan Greenway game last night.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, he was so engaged.
Now, last couple games, he's been good. Last night, he was fantastic. And Dex, we've talked about this 1,000 times. Dude, you can do that every night. Now, I get that there's going to be games where it's not there. But what made him, and I believe he had 4 shots on goal, but what made him fantastic last night? It was the work. It started with the work. Like there's not a lot of skill there. And by the way, that's absolutely fine. But he's also not vacant of talent, bereft of talent. And so like that's when I watch a guy like Greenway and you see that those sparks and you see them. And it's like, dude, you can do this a lot. Where is it? But if you think you're going to show up and get points, you're not. You are not.
When he's engaged and yes, when he is motivated, he is a difference maker on the ice. It's just it's far too often he goes through those lapses where he is not that, and it's frustrating because he's a former highly touted prospect, a guy that was on the World Juniors team, and now we kind of know that he's not just a guy here, but you want to see him consistently take the next steps. And I would love for him to be like this day in and day out. That's the kind of player I want to see from him all the time. I noticed him too. He was extremely noticeable. He got robbed of a great goal early in the game yesterday against Vancouver. And when that line's clicking with him and Foligno and Ek, it's a very good shutdown line, and it can be a pest in a lot of people's sides. And yes, I'd love to see him more. You know what? Another name as that was recklessly speculated about in our Twitter interactions, by the way. This was not reported by anyone. And I am seeing his name start to pop up a little bit more because, my God, the Blues have completely fell off the face of the map. Ryan O'Reilly.
ROR, you were going there.
And someone tweeted us, they said, what about Ryan O'Reilly, who's 31 years old and against the Blues have just, it's just a disaster there. Binnington's a complete head. I can't stand it.
It's one of the more bizarre years, though.
Yep. And look, a guy like Ryan O'Reilly would fit in so well on a team like Colorado or a team like Dallas, who I know are in their division, who are off to better starts. Even Florida, I can see him thriving with the Panthers and just being a depth guy on an already good team. And he certainly won't come cheap. But Ryan O'Reilly, a guy who you have loved for years and loved what he brings on and off the ice. And so does Bill Guerin, by the way. I mean, Bill, are you kidding me? You don't have to pump Bill Guerin with truth serum to get his honest opinions on what Ryan O'Reilly means to a team. Man, that's the kind of move that if they made it, and they did it to spark this team, then all of a sudden I would change my tune on this team pretty damn quickly if they're able to get him.
I'll play along. What are the cap implications? Like, what's the trade?
Well, let me pull up his contract here just to give a little more context.
Cap friendly, baby.
I love cap friendly.
It's cap friendly. All the salary cap stuff's phenomenal.
It's one of the few websites that we usually don't get to it until later in the year. But okay, so right now he's entering unrestricted free agency. So he is making 7.5 AAV with the Blues right now, and now you wouldn't absorb that entire cap hit, I believe. It's prorated because he's already played some games.
Correct.
So he will be a free agent at the end of the season. He probably is in line to one more decent payday in his NHL career. He's only 31. I mean, he's not going to probably make another $7 million, $52 million deal like he got the last time around.
Yep.
But man, I mean, they're probably going to ask for a high pick. And because St. Louis isn't going to just give him away necessarily, he is captain material. He is a very good
Oh yeah, no
player.
way.
Yeah, you're
Agreed
probably
completely.
looking at a high draft pick
In
or
the
two.
division, they would definitely try and get 2 picks from you. And
And
then you
look,
would have to give them a player probably to offset a little bit of the expenditure from the
oh
cap
yeah.
hit that you would take. I don't think it's realistic in the division, but I love the talker. Horvat is a more realistic target, but the price there would be just so high. And then to your point from our discussion about 2 weeks ago, you then would almost have to make sure that you re-sign him, and you're going to be up against the cap for 2 or 3 more years. But yes, the Blues are a complete. I don't get them, and I think that there's a. I don't think they're going to fire Berube, but I think that there is a off chance, and they have had a weird year. They've like lost 7 consecutive, then they win 7 consecutive. Binnington is an old school
Oh
goaltender who
God,
is
he's
certifiably
nuts.
off his rocker.
Yeah, he's
I
nuts.
think there's something. I think there's something there. Like that's sad. Like I don't know. I mean, he's up and down to a point where it's not normal. But it's an interesting name because I do think he might get moved because he could bring you back a nice return to build with.
Yeah, I don't
I
know
love the
what
idea.
that trade looks like, but Garen loves character dudes. That's clear. And then you add in his not just that's the fact he's a character guy. He's not just a guy in the locker room. This dude's a playoff veteran, a guy who has scored big time goals, knows what it takes to win. He would if the price was completely irrelevant and the cost is the cost. If you ask Bill Guerin which one do you want on your team, Bo Horvat, you know, uh, um, Brock Besser or Ryan O'Reilly, I think Bill Guerin's going to say Ryan O'Reilly.
Yeah. I wonder what the price on Besser would be too. I feel for that kid. His dad passed away. I think that he's got like 3 goals right now. And I mean, he's a scorer. I'm guessing being in Vancouver right now because of the family stuff is incredibly difficult. So, um, a move here would probably be huge and help. But again, with where things stand cap wise, contractually, it'd probably be tough. And I don't know that the Wild would make that trade, but man, I mean, that's a guy who I think if he could get back here, you know, around mom and the siblings would be a huge step. But I'm with you. I think if you were to off the record ask Bill Guerin, like, okay, let's talk about some guys. O'Reilly, Horvat, Besser might be way down. I don't know if Brock Besser is a Bill Guerin type of player.
Yeah, I
Which is
unfortunately
funny
agree.
because Bill Guerin, rightfully so, told me on the show at the start of the season, Judd, you are stuck in the 1980s hockey. And you know what's funny is so is he at times.
Yes, it's very true. It's very true.
So yeah, I don't know. But before we pivot back to what transpired against the Canucks last night and a line that seems like it might be taking shape, I'd like to give you a gift idea that can take shape
Okay.
immediately right now because it's the holidays. Ho, ho, ho. And right now you're saying, you know what, Sports Dad, I'm sort of panicked. Well, I got to get gifts for my mom and my wife or girlfriend. What should I get? And I'm going to tell you right now, let's start with this dandy because it's a great gift and or stocking stuffer. It's a gift card to the Chanhassen Dinner Theaters, which is absolutely perfect for a date idea. It lets you pick what you want to see, and there is something for everybody. I'm going to go through a quick list here. A big musical on stage, Footloose, The Prom, Jersey Boys, but it doesn't end there. Also, there's that concert series, which is tribute concerts from everything from bands doing the Eagles to Fleetwood Mac to Sinatra or Patsy Cline. And then last but not least, there's the comedy improv show with Stevie Ray's, which is a blast because the crowd suggests the ideas and the comedians on stage then run with those. And as part of the date night, did I mention you can get the great steak or prime ribbed or
Oh,
as Declan absolutely loves the famous chicken
Chicken
chan. The
Chan,
chicken chan.
baby.
You and the fiance could go and get
There
the
we
chicken
go.
chan. And to get a gift card, it's this simple. You can do it from home by going to chanhassendt.com, or you can call 952-934-1525, 952-934-1525, or you can go in and buy one there. But again, chanhassendt.com is the site. Make sure if you do buy one of these fine gift cards that you tell them Score North sent you, because it certainly helps our cause when our sponsors know that Score North works for them. All right, so the line, Sammy Walker, who, correct me if I'm wrong, his last year with the Gophers was not that great, right?
Nope.
He
It was not.
descended,
He did.
correct?
He did.
Okay.
He was not.
I watched him a lot. I
I
thought.
would honestly say, given his pedigree and the reputation that he had going into the U of M, he was supposed to be a superstar. And I wouldn't even classify his tenure as a star. And I know he was a captain,
Okay.
but I
Fair.
would not classify him as look pride on ice, right? Like that's the whole thing about the Gopher hockey team,
Edina
pride
kid
on
too.
ice.
Mr. Hockey.
Lot of great players that have come in and out of that program on and
Right.
off the ice.
Like
Not
right now.
someone I would say probably lived up to his nature. Not to say it was a detriment. It just I don't think he
Right.
ever really
Okay,
lived
but
up to his
he
career.
did. So, which is why it was weird that I believe he was leading the Iowa Wild in
Mhm.
scoring, if I'm not mistaken. So he gets a chance, which is great. Last night, I really liked his game,
He was good.
and I thought that he played off Boldy on the same line really well. Now Walker across the board, I think he had no points and no shots on goal. Boldy, if I'm not mistaken, had 6 shots on goal. He had a goal.
Yep.
But Dex, this goes back to our conversation of how do you get Boldy with a guy who complements him?
Yeah.
And I feel like, small sample size alert, but Sammy Walker for that first game, I thought did a really good job. And that's as good, in my opinion, as Boldy has looked with a wing or center, possibly all season long.
Yeah, it was. Look, Sammy Walker was a really good player at Edina High School, Mr. Hockey, and a really good Iowa Wild player right now. I know the Wild were able to get him after he wasn't able to sign. It didn't elected not to sign essentially with the Tampa Bay Lightning. So he's probably mostly a good depth player. I don't know if that was consistent, if he can get Matthew
Yeah.
Boldy going all the time. I mean, yeah, Boldy was great yesterday. Again, another really noticeable game. And when he is on, he has the ability and skill to be one of the better players on the ice for the Wild. I'm not sure if Walker will stay here long term either. And look, when Ryan Hartman eventually gets back here, I mean, this is forcing their hand a little bit of, well,
Yep.
Sammy Walker's playing well. They're not going to just take him out of the lineup, I don't think either. So he's probably playing, each night for his job to a degree. And the Wild are now back at home for a little bit starting on Monday. So he'll have a chance to be a little bit more comfortable and he's close to home. So all that good stuff. So probably someone to watch when the Wild host the Oilers, I believe on Tuesday. They have Detroit on Wednesday. So,
Monday.
or Monday, excuse me. So,
Yep. Oilers
so,
on
so
Monday.
a good test here coming up for the Wild and a good opportunity for Sammy Walker to make the most of it.
Yeah, and if you can find a guy that Boldy is comfortable and likes playing with, bravo, because that was my big complaint, which you've got to get him with. Goudreau as his center, I guess, is okay if the wing helps him, but when it's 2 guys that he clearly is not,
I agree.
because he has the potential to be a star, and God bless him again. I'll say it. Goudreau works his ass off. He is not a star. But he's also Dean's guy, so he doesn't get benched. Nothing ever happens to him. Fourth line looks great. Dewar and Shaw, I think, are fantastic. I mean, I love how they work. I think that fourth line to me is about as ideal right now as you can possibly get, because I think everybody knows and is comfortable with a role that might not feature them or make them stars, but the PK, the goal last night on the slap shot was, I love that shot. That's a great play. I really think that fourth line probably makes Dean really
Oh
pleased
yeah.
because it's like all Deans.
Mm-hmm.
But you know what? They're doing what the Eckline started to do a long time ago, which is they are asked to play a responsible shutdown role, but they generate offense from that.
Right.
And like that's the next step.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Connor Dewar's really turned himself into a really nice player. And that fourth line, there's always been options there. There's been, the hashtag depth that I have it sometimes ripped the notion of, not ripped the notion of, but just how much we kind of hold on to it as like, well, the Wild are gonna be so good because they have all this depth. Well, yeah, the depth is great, but you need players to score goals too. That line turned out to be pretty damn good. And Dewar, yeah, he's turned into just probably a fringe, you know, AHL guy. Maybe he can have a cup of coffee in the NHL too. He's an NHL player.
Mhm.
He's an NHL player.
So
Um,
Shaw, I think.
and so yeah,
I
Shaw's
really like
also
Shaw as well.
Shaw's had been through hell and back in the minor leagues, and yes, it is a line of deans. I think that's that's a good way to put it. It's a Dean Evison trio.
And Reeves has been good too.
Hmm.
He's slow, but But you know what I didn't know? He's got hockey sense.
Yes, he does.
Like, he makes some pretty smart plays. Like, he is slow. He is not going to catch guys.
Nope.
But he is not guilty of being out of position a ton, which I like. The only thing that frustrated me last night, and this was not a Reeves fault though, was when the Canucks player paid the price for the elbow on Greenway and fought Foligno. That is Reeves' guy. If you want to pay the price, you're going to get your ass kicked by Reeves.
Pay the price.
No, but I mean, Reeves is here for that.
Yep.
Like, I don't want to be in like, well, Marcus Foligno is going to answer the bell for, first of all, this whole thing is sort of stupid.
Yeah.
Second of all, Ryan Reeves was partially obtained for that purpose. So if you're going to fight somebody, you're going to get your ass kicked.
Yeah.
Not, well, I'll take Foligno because that's my penance.
Yeah. No. So don't do that. Don't do that.
All right. So yes, 4-game homestand that starts on Monday against the Oilers, Wednesday the Red Wings, and then another original 6 on Friday night, the Chicago Blackhawks, who are gone back in the toilet from whence they came. Yeah, they're going to have to. What's funny? 2022-23, Taves is now actually outplaying Kane. Where a year ago, Taves looked like he was totally cooked, and Kane played well. But the Blackhawks are crazy if they don't move both of them eventually. You got to trade those guys.
Yeah.
Kane can go and win and score some goals. He's not scoring goals right now, really.
I agree. And even also, by the way, my guy Kirby Dach playing pretty well in Montreal now too. He's actually playing pretty solid. The former Blackhawk.
The Montreal team's sneaky.
Mm-hmm.
They're not nearly as bad as people thought.
No.
They've got some nice young talent. The guy who's absolutely going nuts right now, and it's so much fun to watch, is Cole Caulfield.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
He's a mite. I mean, he is a small guy, but you know what? His positioning and his shot, he is. You talk about smart, because you know what he does? He does the thing where he goes to the spaces that are unoccupied and sets up and just rips shots off.
I love it. Yeah, he's always been noticeable because of that shot. That's been clear. Hey, by the way, before we wrap up, the Patrick Schoonover Foundation, the Play for Patrick campaign that we raised over $4,000 for here at Score North, that's still ongoing. So if you'd like to donate to that, please do so. Go to playforpatrick.org, hashtag Score North or / Score North. You can still donate from now until the end of the holiday season. Every little ounce counts. It's a very unique foundation, a very good foundation. Go donate at playforpatrick.com. Yes, awesome. As Judd said, we have a few more games now this week on the homestand. I have a birthday coming up, so this is the last week of my 20s. So I'm turning 30 on Thursday. So now
that's a good age.
That it is. 26 was the first birthday that I experienced where I was like, I don't like this. Like I didn't like turning 26. That was
20s are tough.
Yeah, and I'm numbered. I have like 72 hours left of being in my 20s here. This is the last step.
Yeah,
and here I am on a Sunday night. I'm not even drinking. I'm just pounding a ginger ale. No, this is it. This is being an adult.
I'm 53. I got nothing tonight.
Yeah. I'm just
surely I'm embarrassed for myself.
Yeah, I sometimes put even little bitters in there just to get a little bit of a taste because I'm sick in the head. But that's just a me thing, and I'm not going to go further than that.
I might have consumed a bit of excess on Friday and Saturday night.
Good for you. You deserve
it. Sunday, I'm out.
I love it. Hit the subscribe button for daily Minnesota sports entertainment right here on Judd's Hockey Show. That's Judd Zolgad. I am Declan Goff. We'll be back later this week to break down more Wild games. Pass, shoot, score.